I'm Shara Rapoza. I'm the director of the Buttonwood Park Zoo.
I'm Sarah Henry. I'm the executive director of the Buttonwood Park Zoological Society, the nonprofit arm of the Buttonwood Park Zoo.
And I'm Sarah Van Wammer, the director of education at the Buttonwood Park Zoological Society.
Yay, so many directors.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back to the Rossifari podcast. All right, y'all, so we are headed back to one of our favorite places on the podcast for this week's episode. We are going back to Buttonwood Park Zoo. And although this episode is not about Emily the elephant, I'm going to start by telling you what happened after this interview. See, we scheduled this lovely conversation about the new ambassador building at the zoo around my gig schedule. And the plan was that I would go and do this interview and hopefully get to spend some time drumming with Emily because, you know, I love it. Emily loves it. People love it. Y'all love it. The internet loves it. Everybody loves it, right? And so I thought, you know, that would be fun, but it was pouring out. And Emily, it turns out, is a diva, and, you know, as she should be. And so Emily does not really choose to go out into the rain. Never mind the fact that drumming in the rain would be a challenge, but, you know, they are not making Emily go out in the rain, and I don't think there's a force in the world that could make Emily go out in the rain, even my sweet, sweet beats. And so I have to tell y'all, though, that the team did take me back to spend some time with my friend Emily. And when we got back there, she was very engaged in a rolling ball that had treats in it and that she gets to do some puzzle solving to get those treats. And it was fun watching her. But at first, when we first got there and she saw that it was me, she came right over and shoved her trunk onto me and was sniffing all over and just saying hi. And then once she saw that I wasn't drumming, she had said her hello, so she went back to her food. But then afterward, she came back over again and we hung out. And look, I try not to walk the line of like over anthropomorphizing on this podcast. I will talk about that in the episode actually a little bit. But I am a firm believer that we can attribute some things to animals, but also that we need to be careful. And I fully appreciate that I am about to violate that with the story that I am telling you. And I'll explain why. But let me just tell you what happened because it was amazing. So we hung out and we were all, you know, Emilying and spending time together, and it was just lovely. And then it became time to leave. And so once that decision was made and it was like, all right, John, it's time to go, Emily reached out her trunk and took my hand, like saying goodbye. It was the sweetest thing. And again, I know that she probably did not know that it was time to go, although who knows? It's very possible that she could tell from the body language. I mean, she definitely couldn't understand the words, all right, John, it's time to go. But as we all started to move, you know, in that direction, maybe, I don't know, maybe she figured it out. Maybe I'm anthropomorphizing too much. I don't know. All I know is that Emily reached her trunk out and took my hand, and it was such a beautiful thing. And I love her so much, and I love that the team at Buttonwood Park Zoo has allowed me to build this relationship with this incredible, incredible elephant. I still get choked up thinking about the fact that I'm like legitimately friends with an elephant. It's really special. I'm choked up right now talking about it, which is hard when you're talking on a microphone. But so I want to take a moment to say thank you to the team for that and all the things. I mean, Buttonwood is just an incredible facility that has been so supportive of the podcast. And so thank you to everyone who is there, because y'all are just amazing. Even people that have not been on the podcast and stuff, I've gotten to know there. And I love Buttonwood Park Zoo. So with that said, they are opening a new ambassador building soon. And that's going to be the focus of today's interview. And it's a lot of fun and very exciting. So I should probably shut up and get to it. But before I do, real quick, don't forget to hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of these interview episodes or any of the Friday Zoo News episodes. Make sure you're following along on the socials at Rossifari, at Rossifari Pod on the TikTok. And if you want to support us, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. There are stickers involved. So with all of that said, I think it's time to get to it. So let's go learn about the opening soon brand new ambassador building at Buttonwood Park Zoo. Enjoy, y'all. Today, our focus is on a brand new, opening soon ambassador building. And so we are standing in that building right now, and I have seen all of 10 feet of it. And it smells very good. It smells very cedary. And so this used to be a barn here, right?
Yep.
Go ahead and tell me the history of this a little bit.
So this building was constructed by the New Bedford vocational students back in circa 1998-99. We opened in 2000, and it housed our heritage breeds collection. So when we knew we needed more room for our animal ambassadors, and our heritage breeds collection has slowly over time grown smaller, we thought this might be a good retrofit.
Very cool. All right, let's walk through. Let's see and just kind of walk and talk. So tell me what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so as we walk into the building, the signage isn't in place yet, but the first thing everyone's going to see is a little bit of an introduction to what is an animal ambassador. We're really proud of this population at our zoo, not just because of the role that they serve in our education mission, but also because they have these individually very valuable conservation missions. So we try to focus on correcting misconceptions about native species, maybe teaching people some valuable lessons about responsible pet ownership and the pet trade, both the good and the bad and the ugly. But also we want to focus on some larger global problems. So this building really stretches from the very kind of small community that we are, really embracing the past, that this was built by people right here, and we're cherishing that and leaning into that and letting them continue to appreciate it. But also, giving them some of the hints of just because we're New Bedford small and strong doesn't mean we can't have a global impact. So we'll start by saying, what is an ambassador? How did they come to be here? What are the different roles that they play in this zoo and in their ecosystems out in the wild? And then inviting people to kind of walk down this big opening hallway to really meet them all in their glory. And one of the things we're most excited about is being able to role model some really, really cool kind of cutting edge advances in the field. Because we're so small, we're 7 acres, our ship turns a lot more quickly than some of the bigger AZA organizations. So we're really leaning into that. And we're excited to introduce this side of the hallway as our reptile room. Every single one of our reptile animal ambassadors is having a custom-built habitat specifically to reflect their ecosystems in the wild.
Nice.
And you're ready for this? You're going to be so excited. They're all going to be bioactive.
What?
So every single one of our reptile animal ambassadors, as you can see here, we've got all these fabulous PVC habitats that are being created just for them, specifically for our population here. And then we're working with another organization who's going to come in and bioactively fit all of them. So it's going to be a really cool visual display of where they're at, what they need, encourage people to make some kind of critical thinking jumps of where are these animals coming from and what do they need? The signage below is going to really embrace all the things we try to get people to feel: empathy, connections to critical thinking, to asking questions, to the learning standards, but also be kind of accessible and available to everybody. So you can see here, you'll be able to look down into some habitats. We're going to cut portholes down at a much lower level so you can get down and see directly into them, get a little bit of that empathy feel. What is it like to be a turtle? What is it like to be a lizard? But also be a little bit more accessible. So everyone has their own view of how they see the animals, how they appreciate the habitats, how they learn the information that we put out on our signs. And those even are going to be fun. We'll have rotating signs that connect them to the individual animals, learn a little bit about their names, how they came to be here, how old are they, as well as in a different part of this building, have some more general, accessible signage for what is the species information. But also leaning into having some docents and face-to-face interactions with educators and keepers while they work in here so that this whole experience is different every time you come in. It teaches you something different every time, but you also get to come back and build those long-lasting relationships with our individual ambassadors. On the other side of the hallway, so excited to talk about these window spaces, which will be the new homes of our already known and beloved frog species. So we'll have 4 unique poison dart frog habitats, as well as one for our Panamanian golden frogs, especially important because they are endangered and they need a lot of help from us and a lot of love and appreciation from our population of people. This will also have our invertebrates. So right now, our giant African millipedes and our Madagascar hissing cockroaches, but hopefully more to come in the future since they need a lot of love and a lot of framing as well. And our small mammals. So right now we're looking at, we have a beautiful baby hedgehog who just arrived. Aww. And we're going to be getting some hedgehog tenrics to do a fun compare and contrast.
Nice.
Because what's more fun than confusing people with very similar looking animals and incredibly different evolutionary backstories. And then at the bottom, the signage will talk about some of the biggest threats that animals are facing, especially our animal ambassador population. Culminating here with a display, we're going to actually start teaching people about our reverse osmosis water filtration systems. Okay. Because it's so important that we have all these animals that rely on clean water. And unfortunately, especially with all the new technological advances, things like AI that are kind of posing new and novel threats to our freshwater sources, really an important time to bring people into the conversation and say, what are we doing and how can we help? So you guys jump in at any point if I'm just going off like a crazy person.
I don't even need to ask questions at this point. You got this.
I love this building more than just about anything in the world, so I am so excited to be sharing with you.
I told her she could paint a picture, that we didn't even need images for this.
Yes, this is amazing.
So as we walk in this sort of the central receiving area of people in our Animal Ambassador building, we're excited to be adding 2 build-out aviaries to the sides in a little bit. One for our green Rossifari Rico, who has been a fan favorite at this zoo for as long as he's been here. And my office mate, my best friend in the whole wide world, Compass the Pigeon, another glorious animal. She's actually probably my favorite to talk about because she rescued herself. So she was a wild pigeon who was injured and actually just figured out to come to the zoo. So we have some really amazing stories that we're excited to be able to connect people with every single time they come. We'll be doing some great signage on the back with a wingspan display to show off some of our native bird species, but also have a great recurring opportunity for people to take pictures and measure their own wingspan. So we'll have a lot of fun with that, teaching about all the different biodiversity we have right here in New Bedford, Massachusetts, as well as globally. As we continue along, this is going to be a really cool screen that'll show all the animal species information so that people are not just coming and connecting with the individuals, but also learning about the larger species that we have here at the zoo. Because we're 7 acres and we're not getting any bigger, this is the biggest expansion to the actual zoo space that we've been able to offer since the Rainforest Rivers and Reefs building opened up. So being able to say, hey, there's a whole new building. It's got all new animals, some not new to the zoo per se, but new to the experience that every guest can have as they come. So, for example, behind me, this first large habitat will be our skunks, Hamilton and Lavender. Nice. And they've been here for a while, making people love and learn a little bit more about animals they think they know about, but maybe aren't given quite a fair deal. But this will be the first time that a zoo visitor will actually be able to come and see them every time and learn about their stories and why they're with us. As we move further down, we don't even have exact animals to go in these yet because part of our mission is giving homes to animals that need them. So as spring turns the corner, our fabulous director is keeping an eye out on all these local rehab animals that unfortunately every single year without fail are getting orphaned and injured for this, that, and the other reason. And so it's really important for us to kind of hold space for them. We don't know 100% who's going to need us, but we want to have space to be ready for them when they do, because teaching people about how we are influencing the populations of our native species, how unfortunately birds of prey are being hurt, not necessarily intentionally, but even by something as simple as throwing an apple core out your window on the highway. You think of that as something that's biodegradable and safe, but it's bringing small mammals close to the road. They might get hit and killed, and even if they don't, it's bringing birds of prey close to the road trying to hunt them, and they may get hit and killed. So there are a lot of reasons that animals end up needing a home because they can't live in the wild. And so our animal ambassador population is basically animals in need of homes with the right personality and disposition to serve kind of as that ambassador. They have to enjoy the experience. They have to choose the experience. So this is a population where we're really trying to emphasize choice. We're really trying to emphasize that this is something that they're doing voluntarily and that we give them those options because welfare is still the first priority. Even though education is the priority, we're not going to be doing anything to sacrifice those animals' choices. Their habitats are still going to be fully fleshed out, fully enriching habitats because it is their forever home. They just have a little extra responsibility and not one we force on them, one that we very carefully train them and make sure they're comfortable with. And if they start showing us it's not the lifestyle they want anymore, then we don't make them continue. We allow them to graduate out of the program very thoughtfully. So this building is going to really bring people into the conversation to show them what we've been doing this whole time. And it gives us a chance to do it even better. So adding bioactive habitats, having more options for compare and contrast, and even doing encounters in ways that are less hands-on and more just giving people a close-up opportunity to see them, demonstrating the natural behaviors that we really love to show off and see. So as you take a look kind of down this, we're going to be having real, very much inclusive to the rest of the zoo experience habitats that allow our animals to explore, to live their lives the way they would in the wild, to demonstrate natural behaviors, but also to allow us a little bit more of a personalized experience for how we frame the conversations and how we interpret what they're doing. So here you can see there are places for educators, docents, keepers, all to be engaging with people in the moment to explain why these animals are so special, what's unique about them, what's important about them, and really just make sure that those guests are having all of their questions answered, their misconceptions corrected, and hopefully their desire to act as stewards for this world, sparked and really invigorated so that they're leaving here going, wow, what can I do to be a part of this? So that's really the goal, and I think this is the perfect jumping off point for it.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely beautiful, and I really like it, and I really like how passionate you are about it because, yeah, that was an amazing monologue. I love that, and I mean, I'm going to pick on you a little bit, but only a little bit because I love that. It really does show how passionate you are about it, and everything that you said is so great and leads to so many questions.
Oh, please, ask away.
But you have to promise me, we'll talk more about the building, but you have to promise me we need to touch on some of these animal stories, too.
Yes,
because that is important, and because my listeners will punch me if I don't have more animals.
Well, I don't want anyone getting punched, so you let me know.
It's trouble. Very violent listeners. But, okay, first of all, I wanted to start off and just say that, yes, I think this is amazing. It's a gorgeous building. I love that it's prepped for the now and the future. I think that's really cool. I also think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see zoos make is not having their ambassadors also visible to the public. Like you have these animals that are literally trained to build connections with people, and then you hide them in the basement of the vet hospital and bring them out sometimes. And I get it, but I think I'm starting to see more facilities embrace this kind of thing, and I'm really excited to see that y'all are doing that. I think it is wonderful. You've talked about so much of the impact that you think it will have on the people, on the guests. What impact do you think this will have on the animals that are going to come up here?
Oh, I mean, I think they'll love it. I don't want to soliloquize too much. So if you all have anything you want to say to jump in. A lot of these animals really tend to enjoy that social interaction. That's actually, again, one of the reasons that we very specifically choose animals with the right disposition to be a part of this program. And so, I'll use skunks since we're standing by their habitat again as a great example. Our biggest joke about Hamilton the skunk is that he lives up to the name Ham very much. So I think not only is it going to be great for the animals to have that kind of additional social interaction, but also, I think, again, considering the role that they play here as ambassadors for their species, one of the really beautiful things is that kind of multi-directional face-to-face interaction. So these animals are going to be seeing the public more, but the public will be seeing them more. And having those one-on-one connections is what really drives the empathy that we use to fuel our conservation mission. So if people are coming here and they're saying, that's Hamilton, that's Lavender, I know their story and I know why they're here. And because of that, I know and care more about skunks. I think it'll be great for Hamilton and Lavender to see their adoring fans very often as well. But to that point, that's the connection that we're going for in both directions, is that they'll get a chance to connect more with people and people will develop that long-standing relationship where they want to come back and watch them grow and see how they're doing and keep up to date with their training. Like, last time I came, they were being trained to do this. And now they're being trained to do that. Look how much they've grown in this time. So I think that the animals will really benefit from these really beautiful habitats. Not that they don't already have lovely habitats, but to really be able to kind of show off what they're doing to the crowds of adoring masses that will hover outside. I think it's a really nice kind of back and forth relationship that they'll all develop. We don't put animals in this program that don't have the right personality for it. So basically every animal that'll be coming into this building is an animal that we know is absolutely benefiting from that social engagement. And if they start showing any signs of stress, the good news is we have about 1 million different, that might be an exaggerated number, but we have a lot of different metrics in place to assess whether or not they're changing behaviors or they're showing any signs of stress. And at that point, the good news is we've got a team here, again, welfare first. If they stop enjoying that sort of social enrichment, then they stop being a part of this program and they go to a place that will serve their lifestyle better. But by and large, we've had such a positive experience with these animals interacting with people in our school programs and with their keepers that we really think that there's going to be just a beautiful connection the second they move into a space where they get to see their guests more frequently. So that's actually something I'm really excited because I think they're going to love it.
Nice. I love that. And I'm curious, you've mentioned a lot about signage here. And I know signage, I have done research into signage and getting people to read it and will they read it and all this stuff. So tell me the thought process that's going into all of this signage and how cohesive is it? And not only what is the thought process behind it, but also what is the thought process of getting people to actually engage with it?
That's a great point because we all know that no matter how great a sign is, most people aren't going to be able to read it. Either they're chasing after a toddler or, they're on a short time span or they're just excited to go see the animals. There are a lot of things that prevent people from stopping and reading everything that we put out there. We love having it available for those nerds like me who make it their mission to read every word of every zoo sign. But what we try to do in this building is to make it really accessible for any person who's in here. So having different opportunities to engage with things that maybe move when you touch them or have different tactile experiences. But we are just an absolutely glorious melting pot here in New Bedford. And it's something that we celebrate as, I think, one of the strongest things New Bedford has to offer is this tremendous diversity. We've got 6 officially recognized languages in New Bedford public schools. So we know coming into this that not everyone is going to be able to read English. Not everyone is going to be able to take the time to go through and read what it is just because of their experience. So having things that are focused less on abundant words, but having a lot of visual representations, a lot of tactile experiences, really trying to put a lot of effort into having educators, docents, and keepers in here for many parts of many days so that people can face-to-face interact and ask their questions, since we know that's a better way for people to engage, and it gives a little bit more of the experience that each person needs, tailored to their own experience. But also, I think we've done a fun job of bringing in like the BP Zoo brand theming. So everything is bright, it's fresh, it's connected, it celebrates this community in particular, I think. So we'll have all sorts of things for all different audiences. So everyone has something here for them. One of the things I'm really excited about is this other entrance that's going to feed into our nature play space, which is just a whole other amazing thing that I won't bog you down with another monologue right now, but another day maybe. We're going to have some signage that's geared a little bit more towards the grown-ups who will be in this building saying, we know you want to help. Here's what you can do. If you find a baby bird on the ground, here are the steps you should take. If you find, a squirrel that looks like it's having a tough time, here's who you should call. So knowing that people really have these great intentions but don't always know how to get involved, we're going to try and meet them at that place and say, okay, let's say this happens. What should you do? And we'll have some fun, engaging sliders that invite people in to sort of ask themselves the question, see if they know the right answer. And if they don't, that's okay. They'll find out. And if they do, they're going to leave going, you know what? I can't help. I knew that. That's what I'm going to do next time. So trying to meet at different kind of need levels, different interest levels, different entry points, but hoping that the signage here will cater to pretty much everybody in their own way.
Very cool. And that's one thing that I really love about whenever I'm in New England. Now, granted, I'm currently staying in the mountains of New Hampshire, so maybe this is even more true than here. But the amount of wildlife that I see day in and day out is astonishing. Just on this contract, I've seen multiple foxes, multiple deer, a beaver, a North American porcupine. I had an owl like buzz my car last night when I was driving down here, and I was like, hello, all right. Like it's constant. Hawks, all kinds of stuff. And so I think that's really it's really cool that you're focused on that. Remind me, I already put this on the podcast, but remind me afterwards, I have to tell you my beaver story. I saved a beaver the other day.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And you'll get a kick out of the story. But anyway, but yeah, so I love this. I love all the thought that is going into it. When is this actually going to be opening?
Well, the dream is June.
Okay.
I think that we are working so hard on all the different facets that are going into finishing this project. But as you can see, the construction is wrapped up absolutely beautifully.
Yes.
I think we're all really thrilled with how it's come together. Our custom-built habitats are moving along amazingly. Everyone involved in this project is so, I think, individually motivated to see it achieve greatness that we really have a lot of incredible things coming together. So the custom-built habitats, the bioactive fittings for the habitats, the keepers are doing a great job coming up with all the ways to, lay the infrastructure so that this building can work really seamlessly with the education staff who are feverishly working on, again, that signage, those experiences people can have in here, building up a docent program so that not only can people in the community benefit from that interaction I keep talking about, but also people in our community can give back. If they want to be a part of the experience, they can come join our docent team and they can be a part of what makes the magic of this building real. So I think that the dream of summer and being ready to show this off to our probably busiest season, to have a new nature play space, to have this new expanded animal experience with things that we've never been able to offer before or show off before. I think it's going to make for a heck of a summer opening. So that's kind of the dream right now. We'll keep all our fingers and toes crossed. There's a lot of wood in here to knock on, so I'll knock on some now, and hopefully we won't have any other, setbacks jumping in our way. But so far, so good. So it's looking like it's going to be a really exciting few months as we pull the pieces together in time to show it off to everyone.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, for you two, you directory type people.
Oh, no. Here we go.
Oh, no.
So I'm just curious as far as what has to go into this from the logistics standpoint? Budgetary considerations and, how many new human beings will be needed, whether they are docents or new employees and all of that stuff. And just kind of what is the thought process like when you launch into something like this?
So, first you have your construction budget, which, we're 99% done at this point. So that's a collaboration, between, city support and our zoological society. And so that's what's made this building come to fruition. Part of that is a staffing plan. It is outfitting the building with the custom habitats, the equipment. So that's all ongoing now. So now we're basically going to onboard the building. And it's worked into our annual budget. So, you touched upon staffing. Staffing is a big one. And, fingers crossed, that we'll continue to have our city support, city councilors support in moving the staffing plan forward, because it does take an additional couple of bodies to manage a whole new building and all the animals within it. On the society side, there's support for...
Yeah, there's a lot of fundraising and community engagement that goes into this, right? So, it starts in 2017 when the initial plans for something like this came out, and your first step is to find, who's going to be the community champion for us. And in this case, it was Bay Coast Bank, who came forward with a very large donation. They have naming rights to the building.
Nice.
And we're thrilled to have their partnership. It's not just them, though. It's the rest of the community. What else? Who else wants to be involved, and who else is passionate about either the animal welfare side? We know a couple of family foundations and grantors that we've worked with for years who care very deeply about our animal welfare and our conservation program. So it's engaging them, and what do you want to see out of this building, and where can we best use your resources? It's looking at those who care very much about education and diversity and access. Where do they want to participate from a community standpoint, and making sure that the children in New Bedford get free public programming and can come in and see this space. It's engaging with small businesses. Sarah talked a lot about these bioactive habitats and these custom habitats for our reptile species. Those are small businesses. Those are people in the community that we found through people we know who love the zoo.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like
so,
that.
we like to think of a nonprofit as we run ourselves as a small business.
Right.
And part of our mission is to engage with other small businesses and give them this kind of recognition in the community as well.
Wow, that's very cool. There's so much that goes into just one little new building. I mean, it's great, don't get me wrong, but it's not it's cool to think of a whole community coming together for this, space.
And then there's the story. And
then
there's the story afterwards too, right? You're here. We're showing this to you. You're not the first person to see it, I'm sorry to say.
All right, I'm out.
I apologize. We did let Bay Coast Bank come in at the end of last week. We showed it to them and we
they
said,
have slightly more money invested.
I mean, a little bit. But, we got to say to them, hey, this is what we're going to call it. And where do you want your logo? And, so we told them, we tell them the story, you're here. You're going to tell your followers and your listeners our story. And, and then it's beyond that. It's telling everybody, hey, this is the same zoo with this is a new feature. This, come and see us and visit us. And it's, it's getting the press excited and it's getting, our members excited and getting everyone ready to come in and truly engage in this, because this is a great space. But if nobody comes and nobody sees it, then, have we done our jobs? So, we're in that next standpoint of let's tell the story of why this building matters to everybody else.
And that story is important also, to let the public and our community know that we're ready. As Sarah said, we have some habitats that we don't have specific animals in need, but it's letting the rehab community know. It's letting, it's letting the folks know that we can provide a home. And all of these habitats are designed in a way that there's some flexibility in it. The enclosure that is going to house lavender in Hamilton, for example, would look very different if we brought a screech owl in. Different needs, different, adaptations, all the things. So, having the building and putting the word out there, our goal is that, community members will reach out to us through, the rehab network just to say, hey, we have an animal in need.
I think part of the beauty of being one of the small AZA zoos in the world is just that we're able to take such a different approach. This is a very, it takes a village kind of mentality where, we love being a part of the New Bedford community. And I think New Bedford feels the same about us. I think there's a sense of ownership to one another where we love being able to do things like this and have that community component of help us build this, help us finish this, come have a relationship with our animals because we want them to have a relationship with you. So as we finish this, the really exciting part now gets to be bringing people in on this big, not secret necessarily because we weren't sharing it, but it wasn't ready yet. And to be able to say, look what we've been building for you. Look what we've been putting together so that you can come and be a part of this journey and this mission with us. It's so exciting. I mean, it just every day feels like a little bit closer to Christmas, but all of a sudden it's in June and it's because of this building. But I think bringing our community in and letting them fully realize the potential and the progress, I think that New Bedford's going to be really proud of us for what we're pulling off. And I know I'm really proud of us for what we're pulling off. It's a really cool thing, not just for Buttonwood Park Zoo, but also, I think this is a really cool thing for AZA.
It is. Yeah. I mean, this is to your point about, sort of the shift. It was very important for us for people to be able to see what we're doing, how we're doing it, out in the public. Because again, these are animals that go out to programs, they may be seen on site, and people want to come specifically to see those animals. So to be able to add that additional layer of, well, this is where they go when they're not on program, and this is how we take care of them. And, even though, for example, our reptiles, may be housed inside, those bioactive habitats, those are those mini ecosystems. So we're meeting all their needs and more. And that was really important to us. And I think from an industry standpoint, it's very forward thinking.
Yeah,
we've got species survival plans that are going to be taking place in this building with this population. Yeah. We've got McCord's box turtles, they're critically endangered. They're extinct in the wild.
They are such wonderful turtles.
They're incredible.
Oh
Our prehensile-tailed skink is being matched with a really genetically valuable skink because they're on a species survival plan. We're looking into chinchillas who are part of a SAFE program. There's real honest-to-goodness conservation work being done, not just native species that get injured and need a home. There's that too, because we have so much value in our native community and our native ecosystem. But to be able to have some global conservation contributions in our Animal Ambassador program, I don't want to shout it from a mountaintop because it's not super efficient, but to be able to show everyone, look what we're doing. This is a big deal and we're doing it really well. That's an exciting thing to get to show everybody. We're proud of the work we do. We want everyone to see it. And it's coming. Yeah. So it's a big celebration for us here.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. And that's one thing that I've noticed more facilities are moving towards as well that I really like, which is it used to be that ambassadors weren't involved in breeding, weren't involved in SSPs. Maybe you'd have some safe messaging, but honestly, safe messaging hasn't been great at a lot of facilities yet, even though the program's been around forever. And I say that as somebody who volunteers with 2 safe programs, and I'm trying to help fix that. But hearing that that's all going to come together right in this building is really cool and is really inspiring. And I think that's important. I think that, segregating ambassador collections from the other amazing things being done at AZA facilities has been a bit of a misstep. And I think it's getting corrected. And I think that seeing something like this and seeing how much has gone into moving in the opposite direction here is super cool. I also think it's worth mentioning, you're right. You're a small zoo, right? But that no longer matters because of the global impact of things like social media. 2 years ago, I did some research into this, and I could not find a video of any animal that year, 2 years ago, that went more viral than the video that we had of me drumming with Emily, right? That was, I believe, the most watched animal video, especially the version that Questlove stole and shared. Come on, Questlove, you could have at least given credit, but whatever. But when I actually looked, I found over 300 million unique views of that one video in particular. And then we did some other ones that were great as well. And then last year, the year of Mudang and all these other incredible animals, did you know that the #1 most watched animal video on TikTok was a seal at Aquarium of Niagara, which is one of the smallest aquariums in the AZA.
Yeah. There you go.
Really?
Who knew that these small little facilities are doing this amazing work? And like you said, engaging with the local community and all of that is super important. But you can literally have a global impact. If you would have told me 3 years ago that the 2 most viral animal videos in the next 2 years would be Buttonwood Park Zoo and Aquarium of Niagara, I would have laughed, There's a Fiona, there's stuff out there. But the impact that you can have now while focused on the local stuff and focused on reaching the people here is so global. And I find that just inspiring and amazing. And so, having all that stuff here and having all of those things where everyone who comes through here is going to have their cell phone and they're going to be able to take videos and they're going to show the cool habitats to their reptile groups and all that stuff. You never know what impact it could have on a small scale or on a global scale. And that inspires me in a time when otherwise social media makes me want to vomit. So, I struggle with the duality of that sometimes, but I love that, any facility can have that impact now. And this seems like it's going to be another great place to do that. I really love that. So we need to talk about some of the animals that are going to be in here. So you mentioned your favorite office mate a little bit, but come on, you got to tell the story. How does a bird rescue itself?
Well, I wasn't actually here at the time. So I know I'm looking over at Shara, who has a much more integral role in this.
I wish it was a really sexy story, but the truth of the matter is Compass found her way into the zoo and was hanging around out in front of our admissions building. So I saw her and she was still there 24 hours later. And I thought, and just basically walked up and picked her up and thought, okay. Well,
that's not a great sign.
Not a great sign.
So, brought her over to our vet hospital who checked her out and found her to be completely healthy, short of an old wing fracture that, was more than 3/4 of the way healed. And it just meant that while she was flighted her flight capability is not the same as a wild pigeon at this point, at this point. And she, again, it goes to, the temperament and having the right personality. She very quickly became our office pigeon. We knew she couldn't be released, and she became sort of the staff's emotional support pigeon and an office mate to a few of us, and then made her way into the animal ambassador program. And she's been with us ever since. And I think probably one of the most popular.
She, I think, is such a great example of what animal ambassadors can and should be, in that she very much, has been given a lot of choices in her life about how she wanted to conduct herself and the role that she wanted to play at this zoo. And I speak about her almost as if she's a colleague, but it's almost a way that we have to view our ambassadors, is that they are working, right? They're doing things here, and it has to be something that they're choosing, or else we're putting way too big of an expectation on them. So she is just an absolute personality. She loves showing off. She loves meeting kids, especially. So she was just a perfect fit. And, she's been doing amazing work with us, changing people's minds about pigeons for 10 years. I think it's one of the animals that has the worst PR and has this incredibly negative kind of perception in society for an animal whose really big achievement is that when humans decided, oh, we don't need you anymore, I'll just kick you outside, they pulled it off. And they've been able to make do in all these cities where they really have no business being, other than people put them there, and they survived. So getting to teach with her is one of my favorites. I would say working with opossums is probably my all-time most rewarding animal ambassador experience, because I think you can 180 a person's opinion on an opossum in about 90 seconds, because there's just so much misinformation, and they're such an integral, gorgeous part of our ecosystem that I love working with opossums. Their lifespan's about 2. We routinely get them to 3 or 4 years old, usually, which I think is a testament to the care that we take with them, but also just really compelling. And, personalities are different, so it takes the right opossum. But Odin last year, I think, when he passed, the outpouring of love from our community for an animal who didn't quite make it to 4 just goes to show that even when he wasn't on display all the time, that's the impact he had, that people loved him and they knew him and they wanted to know more about opossums because they loved him.
Right.
So, Hamilton and Lavender, a little bit different. They came from a breeder and they were in a different organization's animal ambassador program. They were no longer interested in using them, so we were very fortunate to get them. That's why they're descented. They came to us descented, which is helpful, I suppose. But it's interesting to show them off. And Lavender certainly has some issues that would have made it very difficult for her to live in the wild. So her allergies have made life a little trickier for her, except that she lives in a zoo. So she is absolutely pampered and gets to eat everything she could possibly want that she's not allergic to. We have a lot of rehomed pets, some done the correct and responsible way, and some that turn up in the woods. So we have some animals that really help us have those conversations about, just because you can buy a 4-foot-long black and white Argentinian tegu at Petco doesn't mean you should. Similar, our Russian tortoise Sputnik is amazing, but her shell is very deformed because, in theory, we imagine whomever had her as a pet and then decided to let her go in the woods of Dartmouth, Massachusetts, instead of Russia, from where they should come. Her shell's very indicative of just malnutrition, not getting the right vitamins and nutrients, really poor UV index in her habitat, which just goes to show that, again, just because you can get one doesn't mean you instinctively know what they need. So we're able to give homes to some of these pets, but reinvigorating that conversation of, we don't have that much space. We cannot take any more reptiles in our animal ambassador population, which means the next time someone wishes they hadn't gotten a 4-foot-long lizard or a tortoise that will live 50 to 100 years, what's going to happen to them? So trying to encourage those conversations before they happen rather than after. So, we've got a lot of animals that are indicative of species who need conservation assistance. So, our McCord's box turtles or, our pancake tortoise, again, critically endangered, mostly because of the pet trade. So there's 2 for 1. They're a species survival plan animal who's also in this situation because of human activity. So I don't know if there are any other specific animals you were looking for, but we really invest in these individual animals because of the stories they have to tell and the stories that they're able to tell willingly by themselves, with us just kind of there to help and to interpret. So I don't know. Let me know if there are any other specific ones I missed.
Well,
but
there's Rico. So he's one of our fans. So sometimes you can come across an animal within, the current residence that just, fits the bill. And that's a bird that does. This is a bird that was heavily imprinted on humans when he was young. And he's done well in our rainforest building, doesn't always play well with others, and specifically some of the primates. So he is a bird that is very front and center. He's very flashy, very colorful. People recognize him. We've had a lot of people ask where he is because we have moved him behind the scenes. So bringing him back front and center and making him a part of our animal ambassador building, I think, is going to make a lot of people happy that knew him before.
Absolutely.
So that's a good one. That would be another one to touch on.
I would like to issue a challenge to Sara. Because as somebody who interacts a lot with the donor population, and the one thing I get a lot from people is, okay, if you're bringing an animal ambassador, don't bring a bug. But Sara's very passionate about our invertebrate collection, so I would like to see her spin the importance of those collections.
Oh my goodness, you couldn't have an ecosystem without your invertebrates. They're like the foundation of every single habitat in the world. And, I think one of the ways that I do get some people to change their minds a little bit about our giant African millipedes and Madagascar hissing cockroaches, aside from the fact that they're just sweet and wonderful and none of them can bite you, which is definitely everyone's first concern, is just that it's the cleanup crew of the world. I mean, not all invertebrates fill that particular role in their ecosystems, but the two that I just mentioned, it's such a huge part of their function in their home territories is to be going through and recycling all of the nutrients and to be cleaning things up so they aren't just decomposing organisms everywhere. They serve such an important function. And because people tend to think they're yucky and gross, they don't tend to get the same degree of empathy, which is kind of how we formulate, I would say, 98% of our education mission here is empathy focused. And the other 2% are just because I try not to draw that much attention to it. It's all empathy focused. So it's really, really hard for, I shouldn't have given that away. It's hard for people to make those emotional connections with animals that don't have faces like ours or the same number or kind of limbs as ours. I mean, those are just difficult for people to make that empathetic jump right off the bat. So it's our job to really introduce them as education animals or animal ambassadors to say, imagine what it would be like. Imagine this. Imagine, that you're a giant African millipede or you're a Madagascar hissing cockroach and this is your role. Like, what must that be like? So we definitely have a lot of pushback. People don't think they're super cute. But when you stop and say, well, what would it be like without them? What would it be like if you were in Madagascar and there were no cockroaches and suddenly all those very charismatic, adorable lemurs that you love so much, they're losing not only a source of food, but, they're losing the thing that keeps their ecosystem functioning and putting nutrients back into circulation. So it's definitely a harder jump to get people to empathize and connect with some of these animals that aren't as cute or aren't as, like sticker worthy, like they don't get put on your water bottles the same way. You don't have a stuffed animal in your home probably. But just to remind people that every single organism in this world has a role and it's got its importance. And, there are so many reasons we rely on them. I think that that's the kind of empathy that our world could do with a lot more of right now. So happy to give a lot more love into our invert friends, even though maybe they're not as cute if you look at them from that particular perspective.
That's awesome. Very cool. Is there anything else that any of you want to say before we get to our final 2 questions?
The ability to have empathy with things that we don't like or that scare us or that gross us out, is so pivotal to just functioning human society, but also to conservation. They have to go together. So even if I didn't personally love invertebrates, which I do, I would still say it's such a huge focal point of what we do because we have to find a way. We have to find a way that people can know that they don't have to love something or like it or think it's cute or want it as a pet or want to touch it. You don't have to like something to care about it. And you don't even have to care about it to protect it. Mm-hmm. You just have to recognize that it has the same right to be here as everything else, and that this ecosystem only functions when everyone is protected and appreciated, I would say, equally. Granted, is it easier to get people to care about lemurs than cockroaches? Sure. We love charismatic fauna, don't we? But, it's just that cornerstone idea that you can't have one without the other. You can't love one without loving the other. You don't have to want it as a stuffed animal for you to recognize its importance to this world and acknowledge that it's our job as humans with opposable thumbs and money and technology to be the ones who say, no, it's still important. It's still worth it.
When I started this journey, I was a huge arachnophobe, arachnophobe, to the point where a tiny house spider would send me screaming out. I mean, it was an involuntary thing my entire life. And I said to myself, I cannot be advocating for the animals of the world while hating one. Because I did. I hated them. It scared me, so I hated them. And so I started working on it. And I would get my hand close to a house spider, and then closer. Then I would let a little one walk on me for a little bit. And I would hate it. And I would literally be cursing at it, but I would be like, no, I'm doing this. And then it was fine. And then I got into bigger spiders. And finally, I reached out to my friends at Buttonwood Park Zoo, who I knew had ambassador tarantulas. And I was like, I want to try to bond with a tarantula. And I did. And I held this tarantula. And in that moment, I fell in love with it. And to the point where, for a while after that, I would see a spider and I would feel off somehow. And I couldn't place it until I finally realized it was the lack of a fear response after my entire life of having such a drastic one was confusing. And now it's fine. And I've held multiple tarantulas throughout different ambassador programs and stuff. And I love them. And they're cool. And they're wonderful. And it's actually really funny because when I held that first tarantula, I showed it to my show that night. And my bass player had gotten me a stuffed tarantula that was sitting on my drum set. So it literally went from not just what you're talking about, but to me actually having a stuffed animal of an invertebrate. It's incredible. Incredible.
And that's such a huge accomplishment for you to have independently said, you know what, I need to do better about this. I can fix this. And huge amount of respect to you for doing that on your own. Our goal here, especially with this new building, is for us to help people do that. Hold their hands a little bit and say, like, we know you think they're a little bit scary. We're here to try and show you another way to look at it. And so that journey that you were able to make by yourself is something that, we want people to know you don't have to do it. You don't have to be a hero. You don't have to do this by yourself. We're here to just take it at your own speed. Come back and see them a little bit more today and learn a little bit more about them today. And we have one that we think you're really going to like. So let's talk about that. And to get people, again, meet them where they're at and get them to invest in that empathy for these animals at their own pace. As long as they're showing up for it, they've done their part. We're happy to help them the rest of the way. But that's very impressive for you. Good job.
Your story basically embodies, our mission, which is connect, inspire, and protect. So you made that connection, inspired you to, go one step further. And that's what we want to do with this building and with our guests.
I love that. Very cool.
I need to tell you that Compass did something very similar for me because I am not a zoo professional by trade. I came here, I was lucky enough to come here 6 years ago as a nonprofit professional. And I grew up on the coast of Massachusetts with a mother who would not let me near seagulls. You know the story, Sarah. Or any birds, feathers are on the ground. She's like, don't touch them. They're dirty. Don't go near birds. They're dirty. So I've spent my whole life, not going near birds. And then I start a job where there is a pigeon who is walking around my office. And so I'm like, I send a picture to my mother. She's like, don't touch the bird. And, after many years of, sharing space with Compass, I touch her all the time. I have, okay, she got me a couple of times pecking at my feet, and I am very aware of when she likes me and when she doesn't. And sometimes she comes to me, and sometimes she's my emotional support bird. But, the journey, so to use your term, that I went on from an animal that I always assumed was dirty and shouldn't touch is to something who's, I pick her up and I'll snuggle her now, she's not dirty. She's lovely. She's our best friend.
She is our best friend. She's a good girl.
I do love that when I showed up, you were just like, do you want to come see Thomas? I knew I would know what you were talking about. Let's go. Come on. Let's go.
But again, she's been an ambassador for 10 years. She loved seeing you. She came right over. She was like, hey, bestie. So I think that, again, it just goes to show, like, to both those stories points, not only that there are animals, for whom this lifestyle is the ideal, right? They just love that enrichment, that engagement, but also to have zoo professionals like the two of you who are, sharing your own experiences. It just goes to show, like, not everyone has the benefit of that kind of exposure. So, really capitalizing on the fact, like, hey, while you're here, would you mind indulging me as I teach you that skunks don't want to spray? Opossums aren't carriers of rabies. They're here to eat your ticks. These bugs are not here to bite you. They physically can't bite you. But also, do you know what they can bite? Decaying matter on the rainforest floor. So many different stories where it's just a matter of getting somebody in and then, creating that whole world, that whole connection for them where they leave with this kind of borderline magical experience of, I can't believe I just saw that. I can't believe we just got to do that. That's the kind of wonder we're hoping people come here, experience, and then leave with and go out into the world going, wow, did you know? Or like, can you believe? And then, hopefully going into the woods and having it still there, going to a different zoo, going abroad, just creating these kind of sparks that carry on through the rest of people's lives.
Very cool. Is there actually, my next question is there a conservation organization that anyone wants to give a shout out to? But first, I'm going to give a shout out to Buttonwood Park Zoo, because the last time I was here, we were doing our red panda stuff, and I was like, hey, Safe Red Panda's a thing now. Y'all joining up, and you have joined.
Yes,
part of our community, and that makes me very happy. And our project plan is in and getting reviewed, and it's really cool that y'all just jumped right on that, and I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about what we're going to do, and I'm excited that y'all are going to be a part of it. And I know we've even talked to Steph a little bit about some stuff that we can't talk about on the pod yet. Y'all are going to be helping with some researching type stuff. I'm very, very excited to have y'all involved. So thank you, all of you, for being a part of that.
And I have long said, John, that we need a T-shirt in our gift store that quotes you, that says, y'all know how to red panda. Because there's a lot of great sound bites that come out every time you come here and we do one of these things, and that's one of the things I strongly believe should make it to a T-shirt.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. Sure.
Yeah.
You do know how to red panda. But so any other organizations that you'd like
So the director in me is going to give a shout out to the Association of Zoos and Aquariums for programs, safe programs like that, and the efforts that we as, an organization being a part of, AZA, helps us to, promote our mission. So I'll do the national. Does anybody want to give a shout out to some of our local?
Yeah.
Because I can keep going. Our local, it's called RAM, Wildlife Rehabilitators of Massachusetts. They're a great organization and part of the network for, at times, us acquiring animals. Rehabbers can be a little bit funny about their animals, right? The goal is to rehab for release, and a good portion of the animals are able to be released, but we have a really close working relationship with a lot of the rehabbers in our area, and they know and have confidence in our ability to provide a forever home. So it's always good to give them a shout out.
Awesome.
That's what I would have said. Yeah.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show, but there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
I mean, this is something that's ongoing, actually, in our rainforest building, and it started by keepers being urinated on by the New World primates. They're working in the space. If they're there in the enclosure, it happens. But the keepers have taken it to the next step, and they're actually now trying to train for that behavior, which makes it very, very usable from a medical situation, not to have them pee on them directly, but to actually
At least
cue them.
You know where to hold the
so
cup.
that they can, so that the urine can be collected and used by our veterinary team. So it's not really a poop story. It's a
Poop story.
It's more a pee story. But.
That's an amazing one, though.
Yeah.
No, I really like that. That is so brilliant. Oh my gosh.
I was mostly just going to talk about Frankie, our black and white tegu. Well, he just had some lizards in general, a little smelly, but the other day was a particularly large fecal experience. And so the door was open to try and help air out the space he was in. Not his animal door, but like the door to the building that he's in. And our director of guest services, who's a phenomenal employee who does not have a ton of direct face-to-face contact with animals here at the zoo, walked past the door and just went, "Oh my God, did something die in here?" And we're like, wow, have you not fully embraced the zookeeper poop experience? That is what lizard poop smells like. And she, I think, was very grateful for her role at the zoo that day and that it doesn't typically smell like that. But for us, it was just,
Another day
at the zoo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a zookeeper and have never been, so I don't have a lot of great ones. We've probably talked about, and we kind of talked about this already, John, since you've been here, but sometimes we sell elephant poo.
Yeah, sure do.
So once a year, check into the Buttonwood Park Zoo website for your opportunity to own a bucket of elephant poo, which you can use to fertilize your garden and grows quite beautiful flowers, I've been
stop
told.
into the gift shop where there's a whole line of paper
made out of elephant poo.
Well, y'all gave me elephant poop last time I was here.
We did.
And we used it. We redid our entire backyard, and it worked great.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is elephant poop.
There you go.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
It's magic.
It sure is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for doing this. It's been a blast.
Thank you
Thanks
for coming. We
talking
always love to
us.
have you here.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Another wonderful visit to Buttonwood Park Zoo. I hope y'all enjoyed that lovely conversation, and hopefully it even got you thinking about maybe some of these animals that even fans of the podcast might find a little bit icky, like cockroaches and stuff, but they're really cool and really important. So, I hope y'all enjoyed that one as much as I did. I'd like to take a moment here to say thank you to all of my listeners, especially my patrons, and especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk, Dr. Stephen Williamson, Barbara Bennett, Jenny Owens, Melissa Reed, Carrie Kirkpatrick, John Lewis, who is also here for stickers, and Kevin Williams. And I'd like to remind you all that you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. You can also be back here on Friday for an episode of Zoo News. Oh, and if you missed last week's, it was all about the direwolf thing. So make sure you go check it out. The response has been fantastic so far. And we'll be back here on Tuesday with another exciting interview episode as well. So until then, remember, friends, the word credits backwards is Steiderk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo. Checking. Hey, woo! Okay, cool. Can you make some noise?
I can't. Not like that.
That's fair. Go ahead.
I do nothing but make noise 100% of the time. So
I'm aware of that. Yeah. Go ahead.
And I can make as much noise or as little noise as you want.
Cool. We have everybody. And yay. Okay.
professional, flexible, insane, and childish. Love it. We are
Love it.
all zeroed into our skill sets.
Yep.